Good people of a great nation, welcome to the second and concluding segment of Development Focus with Gideon on ITV. We just finished a session on appraisal of Nigeria's anti-corruption fight over the decades, and Lukman Adefolayan was very excellent in giving a very fair and very objective appraisal. And now we are continuing along that same trajectory, but this time we are going to be looking at the call for restructuring of Nigeria into 6 geopolitical zones. This thing has refused to die like Abiku. I mean, for the better part of this administration, people have been calling for restructuring, but we really don't know exactly what do we need to restructure. Is it our mindset? Is it our politics? Is it our economy? Is it our social life? Anyway, I brought an expert, a political scientist of note, a lecturer at the University of Abuja, a former commissioner for lands and survey, lands and housing in Kano State, a former national youth leader of the People's Democratic Party, a very much household name in Nigeria political landscape, Dr. Bibi Farouk. You are welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
It's a pleasure to have you on this show. So, Doc, you've seen it all from theoretical to practical aspects of politics in Nigeria. And this call for restructuring has been very strident in the past few years, particularly under the Buhari administration. A lot of people have said, no, unless we restructure, Nigeria is going to collapse. What's your take, overall assessment of the structure? Let's start from there, the structure of Nigeria. How sustainable did you think our structure is, our political and economic structure? How sustainable is it?
I personally think that we have a very strong, good nation that has a lot of future, and its structures and the fact that we are practicing a democracy that is growing and deepening has a lot of prospects. I do not see a bleak future for Nigeria, actually. I think Nigeria, with its political setup, it's a very sustainable nation, a nation with a great future in Africa and the world. I do not get scared because of all the political hullabaloos that come up as rejecting constitution, certain people claiming or predicting the end of Nigeria, because that is how it has been, as far as I'm concerned. And when you study nation building, you only get a bit concerned when certain statements and actions begin to lead to bloodshed. It's still part of history of nations, but those things need to be contained. The fact that the space should be available for people to ventilate and see what they want to say and use what they want to use to negotiate relevance and position and so on. For me, it's normal even during the colonial times, because the history of this started as far back as the colonial period. And Nigerians learned that unless you are rejecting what the British are giving you as statutory laws and constitutions and so on, you will not be making progress in your attempt to get self-determination. So it was natural to object to constitutions during the colonial times. Our first set of nationalists were nationalists only because they could not trust the British, you know. And the British too, we do not tend to listen to our history. The British were always the ones, or the colonialists were the ones determining the path. We did not fight for independence from the trenches. It was independence that was planned not with us, but planned for us. So most of the time you find these issues, especially issues of division among Nigerians. Some of it was implanted in Nigerians deliberately as part of the foundation of a new colonial Nigeria. in the 1900s, 1912, 1913, you see the nationalists of Nigeria were people who had more association with Pan-Africanism, the Marcus Garvey issues, and so on, and they objected to colonialism from that perspective.
After our musicians, our artists, entertainers, all of them weighed in, journalists,
especially journalists.
Journalists.
Yes, especially journalists.
They were part of the whole struggle.
Struggle,
including the civil, the labor unions,
the labor unions. Yes. In fact, they came later. The journalists were prime in starting to understand global politics and fight for self-determination from a global perspective. And those nationalists, Sapara Williams and J.K. Randall and so on, did not really ever express divisions, because many of them only knew Lagos, actually. You know, the first set of political system was to just govern Lagos, and the rest of the colonies or the rest of the protectorates were governed directly by the... So democracy really started from those activities. Some of them were returnees or children of returnees or associated with the international Africanist politics. So that is the basis from which they started opposing, until when the British realized and accepted, after the Atlantic Treaty, the end of the Second World War, that they must hand over power to natives in the colonies they have. And their policies changed. When we do not study those policy changes, it changed from direct thinking to indirect rule.
Doc, because we have only 30 minutes for this segment.
Yes.
Let's go direct. As an academic, let me pick your brain. You are a member of our academic staff of university. I don't know, did you go to boarding school when you were in secondary school? Or
yes, I did half boarding, half day. So I have both experiences.
Are you worried about what's going on in our boarding schools now? The kind of stories we are getting of secondary school students being initiated into cultism or being sodomized, being raped in schools, in boarding schools. I mean, are you really worried by some of those stories?
Yes,
yes. Making the rounds now.
Yes, it is quite disturbing. But you tend to assess society wholesomely. What is happening outside must happen in the other segments. It's just like assuming that the military are different, assuming that the police are not Nigerians.
We live in the same society.
Yes, we live in the same society. And kids copy what they see. They hardly copy what you tell them. They try to copy what they read and what they see.
By example.
By example. And if the society's morality is really low, moral decadence is high, you would not be, you'll be shocked to see that some of the worst characters also have kids, and they do not make sure that they change their characters. They have a belief, somehow innate belief, that that is the way to go. So sometimes you meet kids that you cannot actually even engage, because that is how they were brought up. And you how they were lectured.
So we need restructuring in our
the most serious restructuring is in our heads, actually. We have to restructure our mindsets. Then restructure that mindset to address it to our nation, address it to our politics, address it to our economy.
So let's come back to this. Recently, the budget office and then the ICPC just last week were both calling for restructuring of Nigeria. And one of them actually said, let's go back to the sixth geopolitical zone, which has not been officially recognized by the Constitution, that will help us. There's also those who say, you know what, this presidential system of government is too expensive, and we should just do away with it and get back to what we practice in the First Republic, which is what's it called? Parliamentary system of government.
Yes.
That is more cost effective. Yes, there's fusion of power and all of that, but we won't spend as much as we are spending on presidential system of government. That presidential system of government, by its innate nature, It's capital intensive, it's very expensive. So what are your thoughts on some of these?
I do not think that the systems themselves come with a cost. It is the way you implement them that you create cost in them. A presidential system in the US, for example, is not too expensive.
Of course, it is not.
It
I
is
mean,
not.
you have senators who are sharing flats in Washington, D.C. with their
speaker who
colleagues.
has lived in his office for a long time. A former speaker has lived in his office because he could not afford accommodation. So it's what we build into our own presidential system. The peculiarities of office, what you call
the pecs of
pecs of office, and that we inherited from a colonial system that was that conquered us. It's a conquest mentality that we are still practicing in administration of our offices, of our bureaucracy. When the colonialists came, they used guns, they fought a war, they won, they have all the this thing to take, and so a colonial officer could tell you cannot walk 2 kilometers, so you have to find Africans to carry him. Then later on find good horses to carry him, and the same person wants good cars to carry him. And now when a Nigerian person or a native person takes over that office, he does not reverse back to being a Nigerian. He wants to be given all those perks.
They have the GRA, government reserve
areas. He takes over everything, and then he improves on it, increases on it. And this has been happening from...
So you have a governor with 1,000 hits.
Exactly.
You're not something. I mean, Dr. Bibi Faru, you are making a lot of sense to me. There is a governor in South Nigeria, well, we said it's not recognized, but we still
use it informally, not officially.
In South Geopolitical zone. I don't want to mention this thing.
All right.
The man has 8,000 aides.
8,000.
8,000 in his first tenure. He's on his second tenure. 8,000, and he said he wants every family in the states to have a feel of what government. So he pays them more like a conditional cash transfer, because there is nowhere you put offices
a welfare system.
8,000. So I'm saying this to corroborate what you said about the system itself does not come with a cost.
It doesn't.
It's the cost you put
into it.
So even if you go
to parliamentary system and you allow
we have the same mentality, the same perks of office.
It will be the same cost, And we picked the presidential system because we had lessons from the parliamentary system, which we want to ignore. People say go back to 1963. Go back. 1963 lasted 3 years, and we went into civil war. Now we have been practicing presidential for more than 40 since 1979. No matter what the crisis we see, no matter, we have been able to manage 40 years. So I do not see why you think that when you return to regions, when you return to 4 or 6 or 7 or 8 regions, you would be able to manage the crisis inherent. 1960 to 1963, in the north, we were having thief riots. The Borno area was not safe. A lot of places, even in Kano, we were rejecting the MPC domination, and we were really being dominated. I came from the Nepu background. My family suffered those things. It was not like heaven. It was not an El Dorado that you assume it is. But nostalgia, maybe among people who had lived it and want to return to it. Selective amnesia sometimes. Because you will say, Awolowo did free primary compulsory education. Nobody stops any governor from doing that. So must you go back to those regions to have free primary education? Must you go back to that time to have infrastructure? It is way past that level. I think we should look at the other side, which is the economy. We have been very, very robust in our political activities, and we have enjoyed this political life for too long, ignoring the economy.
The economy. Let me pause you again. Something came to mind. Some years ago, when the incumbent governor of Sokoto State, Tambuwa, was the Speaker of House of Reps, and the incumbent governor of Kaduna State, they had a media spat about the huge amount that the members of National Assembly were taking home, so El-Rufai said, look, you need to reduce what you people are taking. You are the most expensive democratic institution in the world and all of that. And Tambua said, no, we are not collecting so much. Even governors take a lot more than. But the long and short of it was that El-Rufai decided to publish his payslip. And if my memory serves me right, it was like 750,000 per month for a governor. And that's before tax. After tax, it comes to 555,000 naira or thereabout. Would you say that is too much for a governor to have? The same thing, arguments made by the National Assembly, oh, our take-home pay is less than 1 million naira, all this jumbo pay that you people are talking about, we don't know where you got it from, but we know that huge source of money is going, 120 billion every year, 115 billion every year. What actually is inflating those costs? If it's not salary and you know, extra code that you get if you travel and all of that. Well, you are a former commissioner, so you are more appropriate to, how much was your salary when you were a commissioner?
It was less than 200,000.
Less than 200,000?
Yes.
Which year was this?
Yes, about 6 years ago I was commissioner.
Less than 200,000. And people are killing themselves to be made commissioner.
Well, it's not, to be honest, let's look at it frankly. No president, minister, governor, or any political appointee seeks that office because of salaries.
No, they don't. They don't.
Salaries, and even if we recall, even during the military regime, during the time of IBB, I think, there was a point in time when there was a debate, and it went to the side of, hey, allowances can take care of people non-taxable, and forget about take-homes, real salaries that are taxable. Okay. Because when the devaluation started and salaries could not sustain people, there was a time when they started giving allowances in excess so that they can complement income. What is important is
benefits,
yes,
transport, and all of
it's
that.
not salary, it's income. What does the governor take in a month, in a week? You take care of his household and his entire family, medical care and everything. How much does it take in a year? Some including education. Some have allowances that are as ridiculous as hazard allowances. If he enters those security convoy and gets out of the government house and returns, he can charge an allowance for hazard. If he just goes to the roundabout and comes back. Some, you see millions spent on their dressing and the dressings of their families.
And welfare.
And welfare.
They call it welfare.
Welfare and
There's
so on.
Entertainment.
Yes, so when you take the whole package, you will now begin to understand that it is not about allowances. Then, of course, there are other perks. I assessed the nature of corruption in Nigeria through government some time back. I sat down and made some assessment, and I saw 3 key areas where corruption.
I'm interested. We are doing International Anti-Corruption Day tomorrow.
Yes.
So what are those 3 areas?
3 key areas, with 2 that have become current now. The 3 key areas, number 1 is contract.
Contract.
Yes, it's a loose area where we have not been able to procurement. Anything can be added up. And most of the contracts that you see, the big people of our country are interested in are contracts that are backed by foreign exchange, coming from big companies that can do so much outside the country for them. Then about 30-20% is for political favors to local people, but about 70% goes there. Then allowances, we don't seem to look at it. That's why overheads. Overheads are 75-80% of our budget. So where do they go to? Now go and study overheads. You'll find that 75-80% of the overhead also goes to people from assistant director to president. Because the other lower ones that are not entitled to certain allowances do not get those allowances. Healthcare and so on, courses that you see permanent secretaries going to courses that are for clerks abroad in Comoros or even in Benin Republic to collect dollars and so on. You see, that is then allocations from crude oil allocation down to houses that they are selling, like you discussed with the last person, houses that you allocate as 2 million naira collected for 2 billion naira houses. Those 3 areas are the key. During Jonathan, I noticed some improvement, that is taking the country into certain contract obligations and committing the country to that obligation, knowing fully well that the contract will fail and the country will continue to pay. We have seen some of them like the pay and ID. A lot of them are in the system and they are still protecting them. Then during this administration, I noticed that there were instances where certain key government officials, using their aides, have created companies and have taken budget heads, billions of naira of budget heads, and decided that it is those companies that would implement those projects or those services. You know, we have seen that in trades and somewhere in the beginning, in the first administration. That is the innovation, the two innovations, and the three major ways that corruption happens in Nigeria. That is why they go into office.
The issue of security vote, what's your take on that? For
I think security vote, the aspect of immunity and so on, were just built in to create monies that could be taken away without us questioning. You can't say somebody would have absolute total control of your treasury and then you now give him immunity and say he cannot be asked on anything until he leaves the place, and you expect your treasury or whatever it is, you know, to thrive. You know, those things are supposed to be fundamental things that we need to check and throw out of our constitutions. You know,
there's also the angle of payment of pension to former governors, deputies, and even speakers and deputy speakers of state house of assembly.
Exactly.
What's your take on that too?
I think it's for me it's inhuman. For me, I mean, first and foremost, it's not a career job.
Abi?
Secondly, it's a voluntary service job.
You ask for it.
You ask for it
like
because you have something to offer.
You.
You know, in interesting times, you are supposed to even make contributions. I know of presidents in the United States who go back to their family holdings in order to satisfy their aides and so on, who ask for more than enough.
Joe Biden, as vice president, could not raise money for the treatment of his son.
He wanted to sell his house.
He wanted to sell his house.
So Obama's and so on that put money for him, although the child still died. And don't even just look at it. When he was vice president, he was in charge of all procurements in Iran, in Iraq, Afghanistan, and so on. He was given the duty to reduce costs at that time. You can imagine. So he sat down almost every day with the present Secretary of Defense. That's how they got to become very close on how the daily cost of war. And he still
can be reduced.
Yes.
And he has a son that is dying. And he couldn't even afford.
You can see.
So final word then, Doc. What is you were talking of economic, that if we don't fix the economy,
yes,
even if we restructure whatever restructuring we are doing,
it won't change anything.
So what's your take on this economic restructuring that will bail us out and make us more viable as a country?
Yes, we have inherited a colonial system where the economy, the civil service, was created in order to extort us and take our resources and sell as raw resources to Manchester and other places. Now, unless we create a system where we will now process our resources and make them marketable for us. Let me give you a simple example, fast one. You sell oil at maybe $100 maximum, 80 to average $60. You make $25 to $50 profit over the last since 1958 when you started exporting. When you sell every barrel, you get $25 to $40. If you process that barrel, you get $2,500. So when you think you are getting something from oil, you are not. You know, so those every item we have, primary item we have, it has that kind of character. If we process it internally, it will explode into wealth, and that wealth can sustain whatever economic political adventures we want to go into. And I think that is the way to look at enhance our economy so that it serves us with science and technology, because you won't get that free of charge. China will never give you. Do research and development, enhance the economy by processing and producing and earning the real value, and then whatever, when the country is very rich, then you can see that we won't even care about what the politics is about.
Thank you very much, Dr. B.B. Farouk. Time is not always a friend, particularly when you have somebody that is highly cerebral like you coming on the show. But this won't be your last on the show. I will definitely drag you down some other time.
Yeah,
to
welcome
come and share.
anytime.
Thank you very much for your insight. And ladies and gentlemen, that will be the size of our program today. Development Focus with Jide Ojo returns next week. This program is up for sponsorship and advert placement. Please come do business with us if you enjoy what we are doing. And this is festive season. Please play safe and get vaccinated in case you have not been vaccinated. If you've not taken COVID-19 vaccine, please, it's readily available. Go get vaccinated and protect yourself from COVID-19 virus. Thank you, and see you around next week.